Boston 12 or Adios 8? If you're about to buy a new Adizero shoe, which one should you pick? Let's answer it. Hey everyone, and welcome back on the channel. My name is Alex. In today's video we are comparing two shoes that shouldn't be compared, the Adios 8 and the Boston 12, two Adizero shoes, and hey, we can compare whatever we want. I feel like they can be compared. They're not necessarily serving the same purposes, they're not necessarily at that same positioning in the Adizero lineup, but I feel like if you're about to buy an Adizero shoe, you may be wondering which one is right for you, and that's what I will try to answer today. Don't forget that you can get the two shoes with code META on topforrunning.com. It helps us and you don't pay anything extra, so thanks for using the code if you're purchasing these shoes in Europe. Let's quickly compare the specs of the two shoes. Let's start with the weight. We have 286 grams on the Boston 12 in my size US 11 EU 45 to 36 grams on the Adios 8, 50 grams difference. It's a big difference and you can feel it 100%, 200%. This is much lighter. On feet, looking at stack height, there's also a big difference. You have 37 millimeters of stack height on the Boston 12, 28 on the Adios 8, 8 millimeters drop here and 6.5 on the Boston 12, which I had wrong in the review video of this shoe. It's 30.5 in the forefoot, so only 6.5 millimeter drop, which also explains why it feels a bit flatter. But back to the specs, you have that same Lightstrike 2.0 foam on the two shoes, in the heel of the Adios 8, and here on the Boston 12, it's the lower layer of foam. And you also have that same Lightstrike Pro foam that's higher end, responsive, bouncy foam here in the forefoot, as you can see right here. And here, the top layer is made of that foam. Price point of the two shoes, you have €160, $160 on the Boston 12, €140, $140 on the Adios 8. The price difference is interesting, and we'll come back to that at the end of the video when we discuss value for money and whether that's something you should take into account when choosing between the two. Let's quickly describe the ride of the two shoes with one word, or at least with a few words, a limited amount of words. It used to be the one word section. It's not really one word anymore, but I want to make it as clear and as precise as I can. The Boston 12, first of all, is an upgrade. It's definitely a better shoe compared to Boston 10, Boston 11, no doubt. It's really remarkable how Adidas managed to make it a shoe that, again, is competitive in that area. I would say that the Boston 12 is stable, versatile, but not perfect. And now looking at the Adios 8, describing it also with a limited amount of words, the Adios 8 is nimble, low to the ground, lightweight and fast. So as you may have understood, the two shoes are not meant for the same purposes. I'm going to explain very quickly how I would use the shoes myself if they were in my rotation. Boston 12 would be that endurance, long run type of shoe, maybe some tempo workouts, although I feel like it would show some limits there, especially compared to what I prefer in terms of shoes for tempo, but this is definitely a long run shoe for me. On the other hand, Adios 8 is a shoe that I would use on the track for intervals, faster paces, not necessarily only on the track, but mostly on the track because it works really well in combination with the track surface. On the road as well, it does a very good job, but this is definitely a shoe that would be used for me at higher paces, 1K reps, maybe 2K reps, and below 800 meters, 600 meters, and so on. It's responsive, it's nimble, it's agile. That's really what I'm looking for when I'm doing that type of paces, that type of sessions. Let's go into the point section. This is a section where we rate pretty much everything you can find on the two shoes, and in the end you have a score which shows pretty much, which is best. Let's go step by step from the upper to the outsole, and then we'll rate also the ride. Here we go with the upper. Upper goes for the Adios 8. The upper of the Boston 12 is too abrasive, and although the two are going, I would say, in the right direction in terms of weight and in terms of breathability, the upper of the Adios 8 is just much better. It's not perfect yet, but it's much better. Looking at the fit of the two shoes, I would give the point to the Boston 12. The fit here is just a bit more true to size and a bit more snug, which I prefer and which I would have liked to have on the Adios 8, where the fit is not necessarily true to size, is in between half size down and true to size for me. I think because this is a shoe I would use on the track for faster paces, I would like to have it half a size down for that snugger fit. So here the point goes to the Boston. Let's also give a point to the tongue, the laces, and the lacing system overall. This is just 1 point for all of that. Here the point goes to the Adios 8, simply because I'm not a huge fan of that system here on the Boston, where the gusset is actually connecting the strobel of the shoe, so what you have underneath the insole, with 3 eyelets on the eyelet chain, these 3 eyelets. I just don't like it. I don't feel like it's the best lacing system and the best way to wrap your midfoot. I prefer something a bit more traditional, like here with a gusseted tongue and a lacing system, eyelet chain that is more classic, more standard. So the point here goes to the Adios 8. Now let's rate the midsole, and here we're not rating the ride of the shoe, just the midsole. We have Lightstrike Pro, Lightstrike 2.0 on the 2 shoes. The big difference being that on the Boston 12 you have rods, carbon infused rods, whereas here on the Adios 6 you have that torsion plate. The flexibility of the Adios 8 is just much better. You don't have the same flexibility in the Boston, although you have some flexibility, but this is just more flexible and I feel like the plate does a better job. Also, I feel like the stack height plays a huge role. The stack height has been reduced on the Boston 12, but the Lightstrike 2.0 foam, in my opinion, works better with a lower stack. It just compresses a bit more and you can feel it a bit more lively, a bit more interesting. Here on the Boston 12, it's a bit too much stack, at least for that foam combination. Don't get me wrong, I like 37 millimeters of stack height, but the Lightstrike 2.0 layer is maybe a bit too thick. The shoe is a bit muted once you have tried the Adios 8. So point goes to the Adios 8 for the midsole compounds. I'm not gonna give points for the outsole. Continental rubber on the 2. I haven't worn them enough to get enough wear and to be able to give you the durability, the predicted durability, so no points here. Very similar, good Continental rubber. It's a draw. Finally, let's look at the ride of the shoe. And here, despite the Boston 12 being a very, very good upgrade compared to 10 and 11, it doesn't feel like a brick anymore. It's a more capable shoe, it's a more pleasant shoe to run in, mostly due to the addition of Lightstrike 2.0. The Adios 8 just shines much, much more when you compare it to and when you run in the 2. The Adios 8 is just a shoe that works better overall, and I would say for many, many people that will be the case. Except if you're looking at a shoe only for your long runs, then I wouldn't consider the Adios 8, and the ride of the Boston 12 is good for that. Other than that, if you're just willing to pick an Adizero shoe and put it in your rotation where it belongs, so at different places for the 2 different shoes, go for the Adios 8. In my opinion, it's kind of the pinnacle of the Adizero line with the Adios Pro 3, the racing shoe. This is just a very, very competitive, solid experience, which I actually really appreciate myself and which I look forward to enjoying more and more. Price point, 160, 140. Value for money is good on the 2 shoes, don't get me wrong. Put into perspective, I feel like the value for money at 140 for the Adios 8 may not be as good as the value for money at 160 for the Boston 12. I would give the point to the Boston. It brings a bit more to the table for that price point. That being said, the 2 are, I think, fairly priced. Looking at the price difference, maybe I would see the Boston at 170, but let's not, hint at Adidas bringing the prices up. So let's say that I would rather see the Adios 8 at 130 and this at 160. It would be a bit more fair compared to what they actually bring to the table. So point to the Boston here. Let's look at different types of runners now and what I recommend you to pick depending on how you run and who you are. This is just my assumptions. I haven't, tested it. I haven't had many examples of people running in these 2 shoes yet. So it's just based on my experience. I would say that lighter runners should definitely go for the Adios 8, except again if it's a long run shoe. If you're a bit heavier and if you're willing to have a very good all-rounder type of shoe in your rotation, then pick the Boston. It will be very capable. It will do many things, and with a bit more weight, body weight, you will be able to compress it a bit more and probably enjoy it a bit more compared to lighter runners. Cadence versus stride. Cadence runners, I feel, will be very happy with that Adios 8 at 8 millimeters. It has a slightly longer rocker, although it's not very rockered, but you have a bit more of that shape here in the forefoot, which kind of works nicely for cadence runners. Whereas the 6.5 millimeters drop on the Boston will probably satisfy a bit more the stride runners, those of us having a bit of a longer stride and pushing more at that toe-off phase. Here you have something a bit more flat and a bit more material to push on in the forefoot. So I would go stride for the Boston, cadence here on the Adios 8. Last but not least, let's look at pronation and stability. The Boston 12 is a bit more stable, probably because of that higher stack of Lightstrike 2.0. It makes it a bit more dense, you collapse a bit less, or at least you don't have that same pronation velocity, which is a good thing, and I feel like this is more the stable option compared to the Adios 8, which isn't unstable by any means, but I would go for the Boston 12 if you are that moderate to high pronator. Alright guys, this wraps up this comparison between these two shoes. Let me know which one you're eager to pick, and if you have the two, or if you're willing to pick the two, let me know why in the comments. I'm looking forward to chat with you about these shoes. A very good upgrade and a very good shoe overall. A very, very good shoe overall, I should even insist. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts, and maybe here on the screen we can put the comparison between the Boston 10 and the Adios 6. Click on it if you want to watch it. Subscribe right here. Thanks a lot for watching. Enjoy your run today, enjoy your ride, and go beyond your limits. I'll see you in the next one.